What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Countdown Scouting Network. I'm your host, Joey Garcia. I hope my mic sounds better. I think my picture quality's better. We're going to keep tweaking things as stuff goes on. Um, but hey, we're here with our first installment of the Fixing Your Franchise series. Today we're fixing the Chicago Bears since they All right, we're gonna leave that in because I don't think you guys can hear it. My litter box is cycling, so if you can hear that, sorry. It should only go on for another about 5 to 10 seconds. But um, again, we're doing a fixture franchise of the Chicago Bears. They are the first. They have the first overall pick, so we're gonna be going from. If you go on tankathon.com, it'll show you who has the worst record. So we'll be going up like that. I'm hoping we can get 16 to 18 teams in here before free agency starts. Once free agency starts, it kind of throws off the whole game. So, yeah, we'll start with the Chicago Bears. And without further ado, here is how I would fix the Chicago Bears. So, there's a bunch of different ways you can go about fixing the Chicago Bears. Um, this is just kind of how I would go about doing it. So, let me transition here, put myself not that low. All right, I'm gonna put myself down here just so you can see me talk, and then go here. I know this isn't the prettiest. I apologize. How do you? Oh, slideshow. Look at that. Perfect. All right. So fixing the Chicago Bears. So we're gonna go through a team overview to start out. So they're one of the oldest teams in the game. They've had 103 seasons. Their win-loss record is above 500, which is good. And the playoff record 17-20. They've won one Super Bowl with two appearances, but again, they've won 9 championships because back in the day, when the two leagues were split, um, they don't count those championships in the Super Bowl tallies. So it's kind of like Alabama's 18 championships or whatever they have, but some of those teams were 4 and 6, and they just said that they were national champs. So we're kind of going off that metric. So um, that probably made a couple people mad. That's all right. Let's go down the actual team for this year. So the past 3 years they were 8-8, then 6-11, and then this year they've kind of fire sold, I guess, and they went 3-14 this year. But they have some promising pieces. So 3-14, but really, if Justin Fields doesn't go down and they weren't actively trying to tank, I think they might have about 6 wins here. So their GM's Ryan Poles. He got there last year, so this is going to be his second draft class and his second free agency cycle. Matt Eberflus is also the head coach there. Again, his second year, they got hired at the same time. Their projected cap space is incredible at basically $116 million. Uh, so kind of to put that in perspective, their cap of players that are on their roster right now, they have 26 free agents. So 26 free agents out there that they're probably going to want to bring some of them back, not all of them, but some of them. With the current players they have under roster right now is $98 million. So more they have more cap space than cap that they're actually spending. Plus, there's $8 million taken off the books already for the number one overall pick, and if once they start trading back and stuff like that, it'll end up changing the cap. But for the most part, and I think the worst that they'll do going into this thing is 116. So we'll say 116. Draft picks, they're fine on draft picks. Of course, we all know they have the number one overall pick. Are they going to make a selection at number one overall? We'll go into that later. They also have Baltimore second round pick. They traded their they traded their second round pick for Chase Claypool from the Steelers. And he didn't do much this year, but I think they're going to be able to use him a little bit more later on. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. They still have 65, which is their third round pick. They have their fourth round pick, Philly's fourth round pick, their fifth round pick, Philly's sixth, and then their own 7th-round pick. So, they've got a fine number of draft picks. They're not, uh, they don't have an abundance, but they've got a healthy amount. Next year, same thing. They're missing a 7th. That's it. Big whoops. Okay. Um, let's go into their pending free agents. So, like I said, they have 26 pending free agents. Um, if I was them looking through some of these guys, Byron Pringle, $4 million, didn't do much this year. I believe he played in 9 games and had, I think it was something like 13 catches. So I decided we're not going to bring him back. We'll bring back Dante Pettis, who was basically doing the same thing, but at, a fourth of the cost. So as you can see down here, Dante Pettis, I did re-sign 1 year, 1.5 million. You got to have some veterans on this wide receiver roster, but their wide receivers are not good. They're not. Darnell Mooney is nice in the slot. He's a small slot receiver, but he's fine. He's growing. Again, Chase Claypool, like I already said, I think they're going to use him a little bit more. Other than those two guys, they don't really have anyone, that I could say could be a number one. So they're really struggling there. Going down some of this other stuff. Let's re-sign our tackle, Riley Reef. I know he's 34 years old. By the time the season's over, he'll be 35. But I just need a veteran in my tackle room right now because I don't know who. I don't know if there's a chance we're going to get anyone. There are a couple tackles out there on the free agency market, but right tackles especially, there's not very many, and if they are, you're going to have to pay them $20 million a year. So right now, I'm going to say no to that. Maybe in a year or two. But let's get Riley Reef in here for a 1 year, $4 million. We'll guarantee the whole thing, and just at least have a veteran. We'll also bring him back Nicholas Morrow. He's outside linebacker. He's 27. He'll be 28 when the season starts. He did really, really well stepping in there and playing. He's not going to be a long-term future, but again, having another veteran in there that you can have for 1 year, maybe 2 years if you want, on a relatively cheap contract, $5 million a year is not bad. So having him and also Matthew Adams is another guy down here that we re-signed for 2 years, $6 million. Again, a $3 million a year, and you can cut him after the first year. $5 million for Morrow. You can cut him after the first year. And again, these are guys that played pretty well for you. They play some special teams as well. Go ahead and bring them in, reward them with a little bit of cash, and we're still looking to upgrade those positions, but we can't just let everyone walk that's over 26 years old. That's not how we're going to build sustainability around our young core. So brought him back. Patrick Scales, the long snapper. I'm not too familiar with him. I know he's been there for a while. I just re-signed him. It's $1 million a year. Like, that's okay. Our defensive tackle, Armon Watts, he looked pretty good this year in a rotational role. He got in a lot more late in the year. Went ahead, gave him a 3-year, $5 million deal. Again, that's really nothing. You're really paying nothing for a nice rotational depth piece who he's not young, but you can get some life out of him as a rotational guy. And you're not guaranteeing too much money. Again, you can get rid of this with very little dead cap if you wanted to in a year. So he's one that I really liked. Another one I was iffy about, but the secondary is so bad on this team, is DeAndre Houston Carson. Again, 2-year, $4 million. It's not a lot of money guaranteed, especially, again, we have $116 million. I'm used to looking at this, trying to find some bargains to bring back because the team's got $15 million, they've got $30 million, they've got -10 sometimes. This team's loaded right now, so I think they're going to be aggressive in free agency, getting guys that they can bring in for at least a few years while building, at least four years. But we'll see. Going down the rest of this list, Equanimous St. Brown, just give him a 2-year deal. Probably nothing really guaranteed. He's a wide receiver, tight end, kind of hybrid guy. Bring back our starting center, Mustapher. He played pretty well. Again, he's probably going to be hopefully he's a backup center after this year or at the start of this year. Dietrich Eiselen. guard. He's most likely you're bringing him back just to be a depth piece, a backup. You just drafted the Oklahoma State guy. The Oklahoma State tackle. That's okay. I blanked on him. That's okay. You drafted him at tackle. Excuse me. You drafted him at tackle and ended up pushing him to guard, which is fine. Tevin, Tevin, Tevin. Dang, I'm so close to getting his name. That's fine. We'll move past it. The big one right here is bringing back David Montgomery on a 2-year deal. I don't know if they'll do this. I think it'd be nice to bring in consistency on a very short-term deal. I think David Montgomery is replaceable with Khalil Herbert. I would like to bring in a guy behind Khalil Herbert, just so he doesn't have to be that number one. But David Montgomery on a 2-year deal, guarantee one with a little bit extra afterwards. I like that a lot, especially with how much money we have. But again, I don't see him getting a long-term deal. I see him getting, if he re-signs there, probably 2 to 3 years. I'd be surprised if he got 4. So just a heads up for any Bears fans. That's just my opinion, at least. All right. So let's cut some dead weight. There is no dead weight to really cut off this roster. I mean, you could cut one guy here, one guy there for $600,000, for $1 million. There's really no one here you want to cut. The roster is very thin right now. We need to bring in guys. So we're not going to waste any time cutting guys. There's nothing really to do. Here's the free agency. These are 3 big guys I want to bring in, and I say big guys. There's other guys that can be brought in as well. I want someone that can be an okay number 1 at wide receiver that can teach Claypool to be his number 1, and then eventually maybe Lazard is the number 2. But Allen Lazard, he's a big body wide receiver, and again, Chase Claypool is a big body wide receiver. Bring in a veteran, kind of teach the ropes a little bit, as well. He's a good leader, is what I've heard. So Allen Lazard, 3-year, $35 million. Casey, please stop. My cat's over here. 3-year, $35 million, 25 guaranteed. That's not that much for a wide receiver of his stature. We're overpaying a little bit, and that's okay. Again, we have a bunch of money to spend. We're overpaying a little bit, but to bring in veterans to get a culture around this team. So, and also give our young quarterback who's developing a weapon. So just a reliable guy to throw to on 3rd downs. They've got Darnell Mooney, but is he reliable right now? Not yet. I think he can turn into that. Can Claypool turn into that? Maybe he can turn into that. And then go into Samson Ebukam. He's a defensive end. He's fast. He's very finesse around the edge. Played in Los Angeles with the Rams for a little bit. A 3-year, $27 million deal. He's young. I think he's 26. He might be 27, but give him another 3-year deal, and then you might go 1 year at a time after that, depending on how successful it is. Again, we want to give ourselves out. We don't want to give a big 5-year, $70 million contract to any of these guys and have a bunch guaranteed, where if in a year or two, we got to be able to keep pivoting. So in a year or two, we can reevaluate and cut without getting too much dead money on there, because that's how you get yourself in some trouble. So 3rd guy, bring in another linebacker, Landon Roberts. They've got Jack Sanborn, a really good young linebacker. Bring in Landon Roberts. He's more of a thumper, just to kind of shore up that linebackers for a little bit. I don't like this one as like a huge signing. I think it's an okay signing, as well as he gives you some special teams, and he's more of a leader for Jack Sanborn. Again, this is kind of bringing in some veterans as well as bringing in some talent. You've still got $57.5 million. You can splurge on another big piece if you want. This is just kind of the direction I see them going. I don't want to use all our cap. I want us to stay flexible, especially if maybe we're going to look for a trade here in a second. So let's look at some trade targets. I found one that I really, really liked. Obviously, there's the rumors that aren't really rumors. I think they might have came out and said it. Arizona Cardinals are looking to trade DeAndre Hopkins. So he's got 2 years, $54 million left. and he's 31 years old, so it would be 31. Might be his 32 season and 33 season. Again, he's not a guy that his age is really going to factor in that much, just because he's more of a route runner with an extremely long catch radius. His arm span is his wingspan is huge. So I'm not worried about 31 years old, especially on 2 years left. It's a big chunk of money that we're talking about though, with 54 million over 2 years. I think it's 30 and 24 is how it's split up. They're gonna probably eat a little bit of that, but not much. So you'll probably get him for, plus you'll push some to signing. You'll probably say this year's his cap hit would be 28, and next year would be 15 or something. It's probably the best you can do. I'm not worried about it because of how young we are with all this stuff. And you know what I said that we give up is we give up 102, which is a fourth rounder, I think. Yeah, I think it's our fourth rounder and a sixth rounder. I don't think they're gonna get much more than that. They might get a third for him. They might get 2/4 for him. I think this is probably the package that they'll do. Maybe you throw in another six. You throw in next year six. You're not gonna have to. You think DeAndre Hopkins, and you think, oh, it's gonna be a first rounder. It's not. It's not gonna be a first rounder, especially with that contract's not attractive. He's older. Um, I don't know if he has a trade clause. If he has a trade clause, he might not come to us. He might just try to go to a contender. But that's someone I'd really be looking for. Get a true number one wide receiver in there. And if you have him, Allen Lazard, Chase Claypool, and Darnell Mooney, that's a nice starting four. And then you have Dante Pettis as like a little backup guy, and Equinemius St. Brown. Plus, if you bring anyone else in the draft, but that's solid to build around your very young, promising quarterback. All right. So here's our draft strategy. Now we got to come up with this draft strategy. Trade back, trade back, trade back. We want to trade back, acquire some more picks. We have the number one overall pick. We could take Will Anderson if we really, really liked him. We could take Jalen Carter if we really, really liked him. But people want to come up for quarterbacks right now. They really do. They want to come up for quarterbacks. You've got Houston at number 2. They might get antsy and try to move up. You've got Indianapolis at 4, definitely wants to move up. You've got Carolina at 9. You've got even Atlanta at 7, I think Atlanta is. You've got guys even further back. Maybe the Jets want to try their luck. They probably won't, because I think they want a veteran. But you get my point. There's a bunch of people trying to come up for 3 quarterbacks, 3 big ones. And then if you want, you can come wait for like Anthony Richardson. But again, what I'm thinking, these are 3 hypothetical packages. You might get more, you might get less. I'm just trying to come up with some situations. So first situation of trading back, just trade back one spot. You know it's going to be a quarterback taken in front of you. So you trade back one spot. You get a second round pick, which is 33 overall. And you get a 4th round pick next year. So you get an extra second round pick, which is almost a first round pick, and a 4th round pick, and you're still getting the same guy you wanted to get. That's pretty good. Or Indianapolis, who's begging for a quarterback, you move down 3 spots to the number 4 selection. You get next year's first, this year's second, which is 35 overall, and next year's second. So you just move down 3 spots. Have them take the quarterback they want. Houston's still probably taking a quarterback, which means that you're going to have to get whoever the Arizona Cardinals at 3 don't want out of Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. If you're not picky with either of them, you can go ahead and do that. Pick up an extra first-round pick for next year, an extra second-round pick this year, an extra second-round pick next year, and then get whichever one of those lands at you at 4. The third choice, I think it is probably between one of these 3. The third choice would be falling all the way back to 9. So the perks of falling back to 9, going back 8 spots, is you'd get 9. Then you'd get probably a first-round pick next year, a first-round pick the year after that, a second-round pick this year, which is 39, and then probably another mid-round pick, like a 4th round pick the year after. The flaws of that strategy is, we're getting extra first-round picks. That's awesome. The flaw with that would be you're getting a second-tier pass rusher, or you have to go for one of these other positions. Now you're getting probably the first person out of any of those other positions of cornerback, tackle, wide receiver. If you want another wide receiver, um, you could do a lot, but you just don't get Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. So Will Anderson, edge rusher from Alabama, Jalen Carter, defensive tackle from Georgia. Uh, Miles Murphy's probably going to be gone, edge rusher from Clemson. Brian Breesy's probably going to be gone, who's, again, from Clemson. He's a defensive tackle. So those guys will probably be gone, but you still might get, you know, Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech, a really long, powerful edge rusher that is slightly raw, that you can develop him into a stud. So that's the route I went on this next thing. We're just going to do a hypothetical mock draft. I already have it done, but I think going with Indianapolis is probably the best bet. But any of these is good depending on what we want to do. We could even fall back further than that, or we can go to 4. We could go to 2, then go to 4. We could go to 4 and then fall further back. Like, there's a lot of possibilities, but the one that I went with, just to kind of give an example of what we can look at, is going all the way to 9, okay? So we went back to 9, got that, all the picks that I showed you on the last one with with Carolina. We got Tyree Wilson, the edge from Texas Tech. In the second round, we got Darnell Washington, tight end. He's 6'7", 270 pounds. He blocks really well. He's a pretty good pass catcher. He's semi-athletic, again, for being 270 pounds. He's pretty athletic. I think he would be a very, very exciting mismatch, especially if you got him and Cole Kmet on the field at the same time. And then with our other second round pick, Cooper Beebe is a tackle / guard from Kansas State. I think he's going to play more guard. I like him at guard a lot. I think that's a really good pick. John Michael Schmitz, I think, is the best center in this class, and I think you can get him in the middle, or I guess that's the early third round, but I think you can get him in the third round. He'll be a stud center. Then in the fourth round, got a right tackle. So again, we're going trenches a lot, which is what we need to do. Really, really want to protect our quarterback, get him a couple pieces, and then we'll build the defense around him as well. So Darnell Wright, probably the number 1 or number 2 right tackle in this class, depending if you like DeJuan Jones from Ohio State. Get him in the fourth round. Kenny McIntosh, he's a big power back with really good hands and good receiving ability out of Georgia. In the fifth round, another fifth rounder, Xavier Hutchinson, a big body wide receiver out of Iowa State, kind of fits like that Allen Lazard build. Then in the sixth round, another receiver, Jacob Cowing, really good route runner, kind of undersized from Arizona, but he's a really good route runner, good technician. Just kind of another gadgety piece. Another sixth rounder with Jamie Robinson from Florida State. He's a safety, good ball hawking skills, pretty good tackler as well. I'm excited to see him a little bit more in the Senior Bowl, I believe he's going to. And then in the last round, we're getting Yaya Diaby from Louisville. He's an edge rusher. He's kind of raw. He hasn't played football for that long. He was a basketball player, I believe. So again, that's a developmental piece, and you get him in the 7th round. On top of the next 2 rounds, the next 2 years, you have 2 firsts. You still have a second, a third. You've even got an extra 4th next year as well. So you get 2 firsts for the next 2 years to grab more studs. And you've got a lot of cap space if you want to make a trade after the draft as well for a big piece. So I think that's everything. Yeah, that's everything on here. So I guess that's it. That is the Fixing the Chicago Bears. Tomorrow we will have my reaction to Wild Card Weekend. And then I believe after that, Thursday we will have prediction of divisional rounds. Friday we will have fixing the Houston Texans. So hope you guys enjoyed and have a good day. Peace.